The movie starts by introducing a young guy who looks messy, entering the Rand Corporation. He goes up to the receptionist and claims to be the heir, wanting to meet Harold Meacham. Of course, the receptionist doesn't believe him and calls security to kick him out. Annoyed, the young man, who calls himself Danny Rand, uses his kung fu skills to fight his way in. Eventually, he finds himself in the office where two siblings, Ward and Joy Meacham, work. Right away, Danny recognizes them and insists that he's Danny Rand, the son of Wendell and Heather Rand. But Ward and Joy find it hard to believe because everyone in the Rand family, including Danny, supposedly died in a plane crash in the Himalayas 15 years ago. The next day, Danny, who doesn't know anyone in the city, practices his kung fu moves in a park. That's where he meets a woman named Colleen Wayne, who is putting up brochures for her self-defense business. Intrigued, he asks Colleen if he can work for her and teach kids his kung fu skills. However, Colleen feels uncertain and uneasy about him. Shortly after, the scene changes to Ward entering a super secure apartment on the top floor. The apartment is very secretive and needs specific fingerprints to enter. Inside, Ward's father, Harold Meacham, lives. Harold decided to cut himself off from the outside world after being reported dead 10 years ago, and Ward is the only one who knows his true condition. The next day, Danny goes back to Rand's company to meet with Joy. He hopes to rebuild their friendship and regain her trust, so he explains his situation to her. But instead of listening, Joy tricks him by drugging the drink she gives him. When Danny wakes up, he finds himself tied up in a mental hospital. Soon, the doctor in charge questions him, wanting evidence that he's the real Danny Rand. Danny shares his story, telling the doctor about being saved by monks from Kunlun after the plane crash and trained to become the Iron Fist. However, the doctor only becomes more convinced that Danny is suffering from delusions. After his time at the mental hospital, Danny gets help from another patient to use a public phone. He seizes the chance to call Colleen and begs for her help. But Colleen doesn't know Danny well and doesn't want to get involved, so she turns him down. Meanwhile, Harold and Ward discover the phone call and start suspecting that Danny might actually be the true heir of the Rand Corporation. If that's the case, they understand the need to investigate Danny thoroughly and keep him isolated from others. At the same time, in her office, Joy considers the possibility that the person she dismissed as crazy could be the real Danny. She wonders what could serve as undeniable proof of his identity. Eventually, she sends him a package of candy, a significant gesture known only to the real Danny. The next day, Harold tells Ward to meet with Colleen, the only person Danny has reached out to. Shortly after, Ward proposes a deal to Colleen. He offers her money if she signs a document claiming that Danny bullied him. Ward hopes that this will give him more power to keep Danny in the mental hospital for longer. However, Ward's offer makes Colleen even more suspicious about why important people from the company are so interested in dealing with someone like Danny. It suggests that Danny's claims might actually be true. After hearing Danny's explanation, Colleen rushes to the Rand Corporation. She returns the document that Ward gave her, along with a package of candy from Danny. Surprisingly, it matches Joy's expectations because she and Danny used to separate chocolate candies from the rest. This revelation finally convinces Joy that he is the real Danny. After being confined in the mental hospital for a while, Danny manages to escape using his regained Iron Fist powers. He breaks through the hospital's strong iron door and seeks shelter at Colleen's training dojo. Though she initially hesitates, Colleen eventually feels compelled to let Danny stay there temporarily. The next day, Danny goes to see Joy, thinking that she has accepted him as her old friend. However, he realizes that they only see him as a financial matter. Joy and Ward offer him $100 million if he changes his identity and starts a new life. They argue that they've worked hard to build the Rand Corporation, and Danny's return would only complicate things. Rejecting the offer, Danny makes it clear that his return is not about money alone. Afterwards, Danny visits the graves of his parents and himself, but he finds that the graves are empty. Their bodies were never found. He notices that someone has been taking care of the graves, and it turns out to be Jerry Hogarth, a lawyer who used to work for Danny's father. After hearing Danny's story, Jerry believes him completely and promises to help him in any way she can. Their main goal now is to find solid evidence that proves Danny's true identity as Danny Rand. To gather evidence, Danny goes to a hospital to get his medical records. However, when they arrive, they discover that the Meacham family has already sent someone to destroy all the incriminating documents. In the midst of their despair, Joy gives Danny a bowl that he had made as a birthday gift for her a long time ago. To Danny's surprise, the bowl contains fingerprints that can be used as evidence of his true identity as Danny Rand. With this crucial proof, Danny is able to claim 51% of the Rand Corporation's shares, making him the largest shareholder and giving him the power to make business decisions. During their first meeting, Danny proposes a radical idea of selling drugs to the community at cost, without making any profit. He believes it's wrong to make money from others' suffering. As the majority shareholder, his decision cannot be challenged by anyone. One night, driven by curiosity, Danny decides to follow Ward and see what he's up to. Since he can't get into the apartment, he chooses to sneak in through a window from outside. But just as he's about to enter, someone unexpectedly pushes him, causing him to fall. The next day, Danny wakes up in Harold's apartment and learns the truth. Harold admits that he died 10 years ago and was brought back to life by an organization called the Hand. Since then, he has been under their control, confined to the apartment, and only able to interact with Ward. The Hand also has complete control over the company's decisions. Recognizing Danny's abilities, Harold asks for his help in defeating the Hand, because Danny is the perfect fit as the Iron Fist. Later that evening, Danny invites Joy to his apartment. While they're relaxing, a group of attackers with axes suddenly ambushes them. The attackers manage to briefly kidnap Joy, but Danny steps in and defeats them. After rescuing her, he suggests they find safety at Colleen's dogo. Determined to uncover the reasons behind the attack, Danny goes to the headquarters of the group that targeted them. It becomes clear that they are rival businessmen who are angry about the Rand Corporation's plans to acquire the docks. However, when Danny mentions the Hand, the leader of the group gets visibly scared and quickly apologizes to him. The next day, Danny receives a package from a woman named Madame Gale. Inside, he finds a dragon symbol that looks exactly like the one on his chest. Danny knows that Madame Gale is involved in the heroin trade. He immediately informs Ward about it, but Ward shows no interest as he is solely focused on company matters. In the evening, Danny goes to the dojo and meets Claire, a new student there. He asks Colleen for help in fighting against the heroin business, and they quickly spring into action. They arrive at a headquarters where Danny becomes curious about what's inside a container. As he approaches it, he accidentally gets locked inside. Inside the container, Danny finds a drug manufacturer and a guard. A fight breaks out between Danny and the guard, and unfortunately, the drug manufacturer gets accidentally stabbed. To save him, Danny jumps into a car driven by Colleen, and they quickly leave the scene. To summon up, they take the critically injured drug maker, Radovan, to Claire's house because she used to be a nurse. Radovan reveals that he was forced into the drug-making job because the Hand had kidnapped his son. Claire is shocked by this revelation, realizing that Danny has unknowingly involved them all in a dangerous situation. The Hand, furious with the turn of events, executes the guard responsible and sends messages to its members worldwide. Meanwhile, Radovan's condition worsens, but he stubbornly refuses to go to the hospital. He knows that if he goes there, the Hand's men will capture him immediately. At that moment, his only desire is to rescue his daughter, Sabina. On the other hand, Danny is determined to rescue Sabina and decides to confront Madame Gale. To do that, he must participate in a ritual challenge against the 3 best fighters chosen by Madame Gale. The challenge includes a bet where the loser has to leave the city. The 3 fighters consist of twin knife experts, a deadly female assassin who knows how to use poison, and a master of swords and weapons. Surprisingly, Danny exceeds Madame Gale's expectations and emerges victorious against all the fighters with guidance from his teacher. Seeing Danny's triumph, a worried Madame Gale releases Sabina and tries to convince him to cancel the ritual by using her as leverage. Annoyed by this manipulation, Danny is about to attack Madame Gale, but she strikes first with a powerful energy attack. Meanwhile, Claire and Colleen have no choice but to take Radovan to the nearest hospital as his condition worsens. Unfortunately, instead of receiving medical care, the Hand's men kidnap Radovan. On the other hand, at Harold's house, two of Madame Gale's henchmen visit him and interrogate him about his connection to Danny Rand. Harold tries to protect Danny, but is attacked by the men. Luckily, Danny happens to be there and intervenes, defeating Madame Gale's men. After the incident, Harold contacts Ward and tells him to dispose of the bodies in Pelham Bay Park. The next day, Madame Gale visits the Rand Corporation, making Danny wonder if she had a connection to his father. Busy dealing with Madame Gale, Danny neglects his responsibilities in the company. Disappointed with his lack of focus, the board members decide to expel him, Ward, and Joy from the company. Meanwhile, on his way, Ward gets a notification that his account has been emptied. Furious, he confronts his father about this betrayal. It becomes clear that Harold knew about the secret account Ward had been keeping all along. Feeling betrayed, Harold takes all the money from the account as an act of revenge. Angry and full of rage, Ward decides to kill his father and disposes of the body in Pelham Bay. At the same time, Danny, Colleen, and their group go to a factory as part of their investigation. They suspect it to be one of Madame Gale's facilities, and their suspicions are confirmed when they find Radovan there. Sadly, they arrive too late, as Radovan is already dead. Haunted by fear and troubled by a dwindling supply of heroin, Ward struggles with the consequences of killing his own father. He also learns about his dismissal from the company, which leads him to consider taking a break and finding freedom in his life. Meanwhile, Danny, Colleen, and Claire decide to travel to China. Their goal is to confront Madame Gale and her factory, which is still connected to the Rand Corporation. When they arrive, Colleen and Danny are given the mission to infiltrate the factory, while Claire keeps watch outside. During her watch, Claire notices Madame Gale arriving with her two associates, and she quickly signals the code to Danny and Colleen. Acting on the code, Danny and Colleen split up. Colleen engages in a sword fight with a female opponent, while Danny confronts a warrior who seems drunk. After defeating their opponents, Danny, Colleen, and Claire regroup in a room, only to be confronted by Madame Gale and her two associates. In the midst of the intense battle, Danny and Colleen discover that Madame Gale had poisoned her men's weapons, causing the same fatal reaction that the pilot of Danny's family plane had suffered. This revelation makes Danny realize that Madame Gale was responsible for his parents' death. Consumed by revenge and anger, Danny taps into his inner strength. However, instead of killing Madame Gale, he chooses to capture her. The scene shifts to Harold, who mysteriously comes back from the dead. Knowing that Ward was the one who killed him, Harold pretends to forgive his son and promises to be a better father. But secretly, he frames Ward and arranges for his arrest on heroin possession charges. Harold decides to replace Ward with Joy as his ally in his new plans. Meanwhile, Danny, Colleen, and Claire continue to interrogate Madame Gale. Suddenly, Colleen experiences intense pain caused by the poison from one of Madame Gale's men. In her critical condition, Colleen urges Danny to contact her teacher, Bakudo, as he is the only one who can cure her. When Bakudo arrives, he instructs Danny to focus his Chai energy and use it to remove the poison from Colleen's body. With Danny's efforts, Colleen is successfully saved from the effects of the poison. Following Bakudo's advice, they move Madame Gale to a different location. However, they notice a young man watching them suspiciously from afar. Bakudo takes them to his Kung Fu training center, which Colleen believes is the safest place for them right now. It turns out that Colleen has been living there for a long time, training in Kung Fu under Bakudo, so the people there are like family to her. Soon after, Bakudo invites Danny to undergo Chi training together. The purpose is to further develop Danny's Iron Fist abilities and gain better control over them. Although Bakudo is Colleen's teacher, Danny remains doubtful, sensing that there are still secrets surrounding Bakudo's true identity. Because of this, Danny decides to investigate further by exploring the restricted area within the training center. Inside the restricted area, Danny finds Madame Gao locked in a room and talks to her. Madame Gao hints that the place belongs to the hand, but Danny is skeptical and seeks confirmation from Colleen. To his surprise, Colleen admits that she, Bakudo, and everyone there are indeed members of the hand, making them enemies of Iron Fist. Shortly after, Colleen insists that she never intended to deceive Danny and suggests that he may have misunderstood the hand all this time. Feeling disappointed, Danny continues his investigation of the area. Not long after, Danny comes across a computer room that contains CCTV footage and recordings of his past actions. Filled with anger, he expresses his frustration by destroying the room. Soon after, Bakudo arrives, leading to a confrontation between them. Watching from a distance is Davos, Danny's fellow colleague from Kunlun, who has come to help him against Bakudo's men. In the midst of the chaos, Danny and Davos fight their way towards the exit, only to find the door locked. Danny struggles to unleash the power of the Iron Fist at this crucial moment, putting him in a difficult situation. Unexpectedly, Colleen, who is inside the room, comes to their rescue by opening the door for them. After successfully escaping, Davos reveals that he has come to take Danny back. The interdimensional gate in Kunlun has been opened, and it is Danny's duty as the Iron Fist to protect their realm. However, Danny declines Davos' invitation, believing that he still has unfinished business in the current world. On the other hand, Harold, seeking his own freedom, suggests a collaboration with Danny. Their plan involves luring out Bakudo so that Danny can defeat him. Meanwhile, Colleen, now seen as a traitor, is chased and captured by her own students. Luckily, she manages to escape and reunites with Danny. Their past experiences together create a major dilemma. In another twist, Bakudo meets with Ward, using him as a pawn to provoke Danny and fuel Ward's desire for revenge against his father. Ward is given the task of arranging a meeting between Harold and Joy. After the meeting, Bakudo initiates a video call with Danny, holding Joy hostage and threatening to harm Harold. Ward feels immense sorrow and guilt as the situation unfolds differently than planned. Luckily, Danny arrives just in time to save Joy and Harold. However, in an unexpected turn of events, Danny himself is captured by Bakudo and taken to an unknown location. During their journey, Danny unleashes his strength and fights back, with the support of Davos and Colleen. But when the opportunity arises to kill Bakudo, Colleen hesitates, and Danny refuses to take a life. Surprisingly, Davos takes matters into his own hands and fatally stabs Bakudo. This angers Danny, who believes that Davos went against their principles. However, Davos is disappointed in Danny for not fulfilling his duty as the Iron Fist to eliminate the Hand's members. They fail to notice that Bakudo's body is missing in the chaos. The next day, Harold betrays Danny. He falsely accuses Danny of drug trafficking to seize complete control of the company. Madame Gao had predicted such treachery from Harold, as he was the one responsible for orchestrating the plane crash that claimed Danny's family. Upon learning of Harold's actions, Danny is overwhelmed with thoughts of his father's past help and his own efforts thus far. That night, with the support of Colleen and Claire, Danny decides to seek revenge against Harold. Aware of this, Harold hires full protection from all sides. However, facing someone like him poses no problem for Danny as the Iron Fist. As Danny unleashes the power of his Iron Fist, he confronts Harold on the rooftop. Their intense struggle leads to Harold being impaled by a pipe. Desperate to escape, Harold holds on and reaches for his gun. Unexpectedly, Ward shows up and shoots Harold, causing him to fall from the rooftop. With Harold's death, control of the Rand Corporation now belongs to Danny and Ward. Meanwhile, Davos approaches Joy and urges her to kill Danny. Madame Gao is also present during these unfolding events. The scene closes with Colleen and Danny embarking on a journey to the gates of Kunlun. However, when they arrive, they are met with a horrifying sight. Danny realizes that the Hand has attacked Kunlun, and he feels a deep sense of failure as the Iron Fist. And that's how the film ends. The moral lesson from this film is if you're going to claim to be a long-lost heir and possess kung fu skills, make sure you have enough evidence to back it up, or you might end up in a mental hospital.